A real estate CEO tried to buy an old diner until the young waitress revealed a secret about his past. The day I pushed a $500,000 check across the counter to bulldoze this place, she did not tear it up. She just quietly placed a yellowed notebook page on top of it. It was the absolute proof of the $500 I pried out of her father's cash register 20 years ago. The faded brass wind chime above the glass door rings. The last customer of the afternoon shift steps out onto the pavement. Inside Rusty's diner. It is 5:30 in the evening. Thick, dark orange sunlight bleeds through the dusty window panes. It casts long, distorted shadows across the scuffed black and white checkered floor tiles. Outside, the red neon sign begins to flicker and buzz, struggling to spark to life against the fading daylight. Victor pushes the heavy glass door open. He steps into the warm, stagnant air. The diner smells permanently of roasted coffee beans and decades of trapped grease. His tailored, charcoal bespoke suit looks completely alien in this decaying space. He unbuttons his jacket with a sharp, exhausted motion, loosening his silk tie. He has spent the last 9 hours in a sterile glass boardroom, wrestling with aggressive shareholders. Now, he just wants to eliminate this final obstacle. This old diner is nothing but a ruin to him. It is the very last thorn blocking the foundation of his massive commercial center project. He wants to buy it, bulldoze it into the dirt, and finally get some sleep. He walks toward the main counter. Clara stands behind the worn wooden surface. She is wiping down the laminate with a damp white towel. Her apron carries the stains of a grueling day. Her shoulders hold the heavy, invisible weight of a 12-hour shift, but her spine is perfectly straight. She is protecting her father's legacy, and she refuses to look tired. Victor sits on a cracked vinyl stool. It grounds loudly under his weight. He reaches into the inner pocket of his jacket and pulls out a crisp piece of heavy stock paper. He places it flat on the wood. He uses 2 fingers to slide it slowly across the counter, right into her line of sight. It is a certified bank check. The number written across it is staggering. Victor looks around the empty room, his eyes scanning the peeling wallpaper and the rusted fixtures. His gaze is completely devoid of sentiment. "The sun is setting, Clara," Victor says. His voice is smooth, calculated, but heavy with corporate fatigue. "It is setting on this neighborhood, and it is certainly setting on this broken-down diner. Take this number. Go start a new life somewhere else." Clara stops moving the towel. She looks down at the check. Her expression does not shift. There is no gasp of shock. There is no flash of greed. She simply looks at the $500,000 as if it is a piece of trash left behind by a careless patron. She turns around, grabs a thick ceramic mug, and pours dark, bitter coffee from the burner. She sets the steaming mug directly in front of him. Then, she places her fingertips lightly on the edge of the check. She pushes it calmly back across the wood. "Your coffee is $2.50, Victor," Clara says. Her voice is quiet, grounded in an immovable defiance. "If you plan to pay with this piece of paper, I am afraid it is the end of the day. The register does not have nearly enough change." The dawn mist clings to the cracked asphalt like a cold gray shroud. The rhythmic, aggressive crash of hammers against corrugated tin echoes loudly through the empty street. Victor stands beside the gleaming silver hood of his Mercedes. He wears a tailored dark overcoat against the morning chill. His arms are folded tightly across his chest. He watches a crew of workmen in neon vests drill the final panels of a 10-foot-high construction fence. The jagged metal barrier is being bolted exactly along the diner's property line. The adjacent dirt lot, the only parking space keeping Rusty's diner alive, is now completely sealed off. To Victor, this is not an act of cruelty. It is simply leverage. If you cannot buy a property with cash, you simply cut off its oxygen. He checks his platinum watch. He is waiting for the diner door to fly open. He expects Clara to rush out, frantic and tearful, finally ready to sign the sale papers just to survive. The heavy glass door pushes open. The faded brass chime rings into the cold morning air. Clara steps out onto the pavement. She is still wearing her faded, oil-stained apron from the early morning prep shift. She is not crying. She is not rushing. She walks toward him with a slow, deliberate pace. Her eyes are shadowed with exhaustion, but her posture is unbending. In her right hand, she carries a thick, grease-stained manila folder. She stops right in front of Victor. Without a word of greeting, she drops the heavy folder directly onto the pristine, polished hood of his luxury car. The slap of paper against expensive metal is sharp and loud. Victor's jaw tightens slightly, but he forces a condescending smirk. He looks down at the dirty folder, then back up to her face. "Without a parking lot, your customers are going to disappear, Clara," Victor says. His voice is smooth, cutting easily through the noise of the construction. "This place will starve to death in less than 2 weeks." Clara does not look at the massive metal fence. She keeps her eyes locked entirely on his. "I spent my night shift at the city records office," Clara says. Her voice is calm, anchored by a deep, quiet anger. She taps her index finger against the dirty folder resting on his car. Zoning Law of 1998. Section 4. Clara states, her tone precise and unwavering. Any commercial project breaking ground within 50 feet of an established dining establishment must compensate 30% of daily projected revenue due to noise and environmental pollution. Victor's smirk completely vanishes. The confident, untouchable corporate armor around him cracks, just for a fraction of a second. Clara steps an inch closer. "My lawyer filed the injunction an hour ago," she whispers, her words sharp enough to cut glass. "Every time a hammer hits that metal, you owe me, so keep building your fence. But you better start counting the compensation money, Mr. CEO." She turns around. She walks back to the diner, leaving the heavy folder on his car. Victor stands alone in the cold mist. He stares at the grease stains on his hood. For the first time, the sound of his own workmen hammering feels less like a victory and much more like a very expensive mistake. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 days have passed since the metal fence went up. Heavy, relentless rain streaks down the tinted windows of a luxury SUV parked across the street. Inside the dark cabin, Victor sits in absolute silence. He is not wearing his bespoke corporate armor tonight. He is wearing a heavy, dark turtleneck. Chronic insomnia has hollowed out his eyes. He tells himself, he only drove here to see if the diner is finally dead. But the truth is, his overworked brain is desperate for the quietest corner of the city. Through the windshield, the broken neon sign of Rusty's Diner reflects in shattered red lines across the black puddles. Victor pushes the glass door open. The chime is barely audible over the rain. He slides into a cracked vinyl booth in the deepest shadow of the room. He does not ask for a menu. He just watches. Clara is exhausted. The dark circles under her eyes mirror his own, but she refuses to let her shoulders slump. At the main counter sits a heavy-set, middle-aged man in a muddy construction jacket. He is heavily intoxicated. The man slams his fist violently against the wood, slurring curses, demanding whiskey in his coffee. He threatens to shatter the glass pie display if he is ignored. Victor reaches into his pocket. His thumb hovers over his phone screen, ready to dial the police. It is his instinctual, corporate reflex. Eliminate the threat quickly and cleanly. Before Victor can press the screen, Clara steps out from the kitchen. She holds no weapon. She does not scream. She does not play the terrified victim. She simply slides a tall glass of ice water and a plate of dry toast across the counter. She leans in close. Her voice is low, steady, and completely unafraid. "Drink the water, Marcus," Clara says smoothly. "Your daughter is waiting up for you. You do not want her seeing you like this." Without breaking eye contact, her hand moves seamlessly over the laminate counter, quietly slipping Marcus's heavy truck keys into her apron pocket. The drunk man blinks heavily. The aggression drains out of his posture instantly. Within 2 minutes, Marcus crosses his thick arms on the counter and falls into a heavy sleep. Victor sits in the shadows, completely stunned. He watches her drape a faded apron over the sleeping man's broad shoulders. Victor recognizes exactly what just happened. She isolated the threat, neutralized the emotional volatility, and manipulated the outcome with a surgical precision. His initial arrogance fractures. A sharp, intense intellectual respect takes its place. Clara walks over to Victor's dark corner. She does not ask for his order. She simply sets a steaming mug of dark, bitter coffee on his table. She remembers his exact preference. Victor keeps his eyes on the sleeping man at the counter. His voice is quiet, stripped entirely of its usual condescension. You handled him better than my corporate fixers handle a hostile takeover. Why are you wasting that kind of intellect in a place that smells like burnt grease? With your head, you could be a ruthless corporate lawyer. Clara pulls a wrinkled receipt pad from her apron. She does not bother to look up at him. Because the world already has enough suits gutting people for profit. Victor takes a slow sip of the coffee. His dark eyes lock onto her, testing her psychological boundaries. And you think frying eggs at bad AM is saving the world? Clara stops writing. For the first time, she looks up. Her eyes meet his with a cold, unwavering empathy. No, but someone has to feed the night shift after corporations like yours lay them off. I don't save the world. I just keep my corner of it from starving. The harsh, mechanical hum of the kitchen exhaust fan vibrates through the cramped space. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The chaotic lunch rush is finally over. Clara stands completely still next to the stainless steel prep table. A thick stack of legal documents rests on the scratched metal surface, freshly delivered by a private courier. The bold black letterhead of Victor's corporate law firm glares up at her under the flickering fluorescent light. She holds the diner's greasy landline phone pressed hard against her ear. On the other end of the line, Victor sits high above the city in his pristine, temperature-controlled glass office. The quiet, unguarded man who drank black coffee in the Ba AM rainstorm is entirely gone. He has put his ruthless corporate armor back on. He has searched for her breaking point, and he is certain he has finally found it. End-of-life care is ruinously expensive in this country, Clara, Victor says. His voice comes through the receiver smooth, calculated, and completely devoid of emotion. Your father spent 3 weeks in the intensive care unit before he passed. That private hospital held a massive lien that you could not possibly pay off in 2 lifetimes. My firm simply acquired it. Clara stares at the final number printed on the legal notice. The debt is astronomical. It is a financial guillotine. It is enough to take the diner, seize her small apartment, and throw her out onto the street with absolutely nothing. She grips the edge of the steel table. Her knuckles turn bone white. The fragile, quiet respect she felt for him just 3 nights ago violently disintegrates. It is instantly replaced by a cold, suffocating fury. You bought my dead father's hospital bills, Clara whispers. I told you I would clear the land for this project. Victor replies evenly, mistaking her quiet shock for surrender. This is not personal, Clara. It is just business. Sign the sale papers for the diner, and I will wipe the medical debt clean. Refuse, or my legal department files for full collection tomorrow morning. The bank will seize everything you own by Friday. A heavy silence stretches across the line. Only the faint static of the diner's old phone wire fills the space. Victor waits for the sob. He waits for the desperate, broken plea for mercy. He has built an empire on the belief that every single human being has a breaking point, and financial ruin is the universal trigger. But Clara does not break. She hardens into steel. You think buying a dead man's medical debt to extort his daughter is business? Clara asks. Her voice drops an octave. It trembles, but not from fear. It shakes with a pure, crystalline rage. Victor hesitates. He does not answer. That is not business, Victor, Clara says, her words cutting through the telephone static like a rusted blade. That is cowardice. Victor shifts in his expensive leather chair, a sudden, unfamiliar spike of unease hitting his chest. Clara, be reasonable. 9 a.m. tomorrow, Clara interrupts. Her tone leaves absolutely no room for negotiation. I will be at your office. She does not wait for him to say another word. She slams the receiver down onto the wall cradle. The loud, violent crack of cheap plastic echoes through the empty kitchen. Clara looks down at the legal threat on the table. She does not shed a single tear. Instead, she turns around, walks straight into the dusty back office, and pulls a heavy, rusted lockbox from beneath her father's old desk. The elevator doors slide open on the 42nd floor. Victor's executive office is a monument to sterile wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook the gray, sprawling city skyline. There is no warmth here. The surfaces are cold glass, polished steel, and stark white leather. Victor sits behind a massive, transparent desk. He is wearing a flawless charcoal suit. A thick legal document rests perfectly centered on the glass in front of him. A heavy gold fountain pen lies right beside it. He expects a weeping, broken woman to walk through his doors. He expects her to beg. Instead, Clara walks in alone. She is wearing a faded denim jacket. Her heavy boots leave faint, damp scuff marks on the pristine white carpet. She does not look around in awe. She does not look intimidated by the altitude or the money. Her spine is straight, and her eyes are locked entirely on him. Over her shoulder, she carries a frayed, heavy canvas bag. She stops directly in front of the desk. With a dull, heavy thud, she drops the worn bag onto the flawless glass surface. The violent impact vibrates through the expensive furniture. Victor leans back in his leather chair. He studies her face, searching for the financial desperation he relies on. He finds absolutely none. He assumes she is just putting up a final, stubborn front. He picks up the gold pen and slides it across the glass. He uses his index finger to push the legal contract toward her. "Sign it," Victor says. His voice is smooth, echoing slightly in the vast, quiet room. "And your father's medical debt will vanish in a single heartbeat. You walk away free and clear." Clara does not even glance at the contract. She does not look at the pen. She keeps her eyes fixed firmly on his. She reaches out and grabs the metal zipper of her frayed canvas bag. "You are very good at this, Victor," Clara says. Her voice is deadly quiet. It is the dangerous tone of a woman who has absolutely nothing left to lose. She pulls the zipper open. "You are an expert at using money to buy the silence of other people," Clara continues, her voice steady and unyielding. "You use your wealth to bury your problems and erase your mistakes." Victor frowns slightly. The utter lack of fear in her voice makes him suddenly uneasy. The corporate script he has memorized is falling apart. He sits forward, lacing his fingers together over the desk. "This is a generous offer, Clara," Victor warns, his tone turning sharp. "Do not let your pride ruin your life." Clara ignores his warning completely. She reaches her hand deep into the dark canvas bag. "I just have one question for you, Mr. CEO," Clara says. She pulls out a crumbling, leather-bound ledger. The cover is cracked, peeling, and stained with decades of kitchen grease. She places the dirty book directly on top of his pristine legal contract. "I wonder," Clara whispers, leaning over the glass desk so he can hear every single syllable clearly. "How much money are you planning to pay to buy back your own past?" The air in the sterile, 42nd floor office suddenly turns suffocatingly thick. Victor stares down at the crumbling, grease-stained ledger resting on his flawless glass desk. The mocking, confident corporate smile completely vanishes from his face. Clara reaches out. Her fingers are rough and calloused from years of manual labor. She flips open the heavy leather cover. The dry, yellowed pages rustle loudly in the quiet, temperature-controlled room. She turns to a specific page, marked by a faded ribbon. She slides the open book exactly into the center of his desk. "August 14th, 20 years ago," Clara says. Her voice is a low, dangerous murmur. "The diner lost $500 from the cash register. The police investigated. They found half a fingerprint belonging to the teenage dishwasher boy." Victor's posture goes completely rigid. The blood slowly drains from his face, leaving his skin a pale, ashen gray. His eyes dart from the yellowed page to Clara. His corporate survival instinct, the primal, aggressive urge to attack when cornered violently kicks in. "Are you out of your mind?" Victor snaps. His voice rises, cracking slightly under the sudden, immense pressure. "Are you really trying to blackmail me over a petty theft from my childhood? The statute of limitations expired decades ago." "Do not be ridiculous, Clara. You have absolutely nothing." He reaches out to push the dirty book off his desk. Clara slams her palm down flat onto the yellowed page, stopping him instantly. The sharp sound echoes off the glass walls. Tears finally brim in her eyes. They are born from a decade of exhaustion, financial terror, and suppressed grief. But her voice does not break. It sharpens into a jagged, merciless blade. "Look for yourself, Victor," Clara commands. Her voice trembles with absolute, undeniable authority. My dad wiped the rest of the fingerprint clean before the cops arrived. Victor freezes. His hand hovers over the glass desk. He looks down at her calloused hand, and then down at the faded blue ink written beneath her fingers. He recognizes the handwriting immediately. It is Rusty's messy, uneven scrawl. The letters are written with the heavy, deliberate strokes of an old man who worked with his hands, not a pen. Victor reads the words in absolute silence. $500. An investment for the kid, Victor. I hope he does not waste this chance. The silence in the room stretches into a heavy, suffocating eternity. Victor forgets how to breathe. The massive, towering empire he has spent 2 decades building suddenly feels like it is made of fragile glass. He did not build his life on his own ruthless corporate genius. He built it on the stolen lifeblood of a struggling family diner. He built it because an old man chose quiet mercy over justice. And in return, Victor had spent the last 2 weeks trying to destroy that man's only daughter. Victor looks up from the page. He looks at Clara. He sees the heavy, dark circles under her eyes. He sees the frayed edges of her denim jacket. He sees the direct, devastating consequence of his own ambition standing right in front of him. The invulnerable corporate titan is gone. Victor slowly sinks back into his leather chair. The crushing, undeniable weight of 20 years of silence finally breaks him. The torrential rain has not stopped. Victor's black Mercedes sits idling by the curb outside Rusty's diner. The neon sign is dead. The street is completely empty. Victor steps out into the downpour. He has abandoned his bespoke suit jacket. His expensive white dress shirt is soaked, clinging to his skin. He looks nothing like the untouchable, arrogant CEO from this afternoon. He looks like a man who has just watched his entire reality violently fracture. He walks toward the diner's glass door. The closed sign hangs crookedly behind the glass. Inside, the dim emergency lights cast long, bruised shadows. Clara is wiping down the last table near the window. She stops. She sees him standing out in the rain, staring at the diner like it is a ghost. She does not call the police. She drops her towel, walks to the front, turns the deadbolt, and pushes the heavy door open. The cold wind bites through the narrow gap. Victor does not step inside. He stands frozen on the wet pavement. His hands are shaking violently. He holds out a thick, legal envelope. The rain immediately begins to warp and ruin the heavy corporate paper. "I canceled the collection," Victor says. His voice is completely hollowed out. It breaks unevenly over the sound of the rain. "The medical debt is gone. I tore up the papers." Clara looks at the wet envelope, then up at his pale, devastated face. She does not reach for it. "I didn't know," Victor whispers, his chest heaving as he struggles to breathe. The polished corporate titan is gone. In his place is just the terrified, guilty teenage boy who ran away 20 years ago. "I swear to you, I didn't know he carried that shortage himself. I didn't know it drowned this place." He reaches into his wet pocket with a trembling hand. He pulls out a leather-bound checkbook and a pen. It is his oldest, most deeply ingrained reflex. When something is broken, he buys a replacement. "Let me fix this," Victor pleads. His words rush out in a desperate, frantic rhythm. "Let me compensate you. For the diner. For the years you spent working off his debt. How much do you want, Clara? Please, just name a number." Clara looks at the checkbook. The sheer panic in his eyes is tragic. There is no anger left in her anymore, only a heavy, profound sorrow. She steps forward into the doorway, standing inches from the rain. She does not take the envelope. She does not reach for the pen. "Put your money away, Victor," Clara says softly. Her voice is steady, anchoring the chaotic noise of the storm. Victor freezes. "My father didn't protect you that night to make a financial investment," Clara continues, looking directly into his fractured eyes. "He didn't give you $500 so that 20 years later you could come back with millions and buy off your own conscience." Victor slowly drops his hand. The pen slips from his fingers and clatters onto the wet asphalt. "He didn't want a return on his money," Clara says. her words cutting through the rain with absolute, undeniable clarity. "He just wanted you to be a decent human being." She steps back inside. She slowly pulls the glass door shut. The deadbolt clicks into place with a heavy, final sound. Victor is left standing entirely alone in the dark, the rain washing over the useless checkbook in his hand. The morning sun is bright and warm, cutting through the crisp city air. The heavy, mechanical roar of construction has returned, but the landscape has fundamentally changed. The suffocating metal fence is gone. The massive concrete foundation of the new commercial center no longer cuts through the diner's parking lot. Instead, the rising steel framework curves deliberately into a wide, protective U-shape. It completely embraces the small plot of land where Rusty's diner stands. The diner is not an obstacle anymore. It is the anchor. The brass wind chime above the glass door rings. Clara pushes the door open and steps out onto the small concrete porch. She pauses, holding a white ceramic mug. Victor is walking across the asphalt lot. He is not wearing a bespoke charcoal suit. He is wearing a faded gray t-shirt, worn denim jeans, and scuffed work boots. The pristine, untouchable corporate armor is completely stripped away. Over his right shoulder, he carries a heavy wooden stepladder. In his left hand, he grips a battered, metal toolbox. Clara watches him approach. The early sunlight catches the light sweat already forming on his brow. He looks tired, but for the first time, his posture is not rigid with corporate hostility. He looks grounded. He looks real. He drops the heavy metal toolbox onto the wooden porch with a loud, metallic clatter. He leans the ladder against the peeling paint of the exterior wall. Clara leans against the doorframe. She crosses her arms, letting the steam from the coffee rise between them. "What exactly are you doing, Mr. CEO?" Clara asks. Her voice is calm, carrying a subtle edge of genuine curiosity. Victor wipes his palms on his jeans. He looks up at the rusted tin roof, then turns back to her. For the first time since they met, he offers a small, entirely sincere smile. "The ceiling directly above the bar has a leak." Victor says, his voice steady, "I'm guessing the wood started to rot the exact year your father didn't have $500 extra to replace the tin roof." He looks down at his own hands, the hands that once pried open a cash register, the hands that built a ruthless real estate empire, and the hands that are now covered in morning dust. "Let me fix it myself," Victor says. It is not a corporate negotiation. It is not a millionaire throwing a massive check at a problem to clear his conscience. It is a man offering the only currency that actually matters: his own labor, his own time, and his own bruised ego. Clara looks at him for a long, quiet moment. The heavy, invisible walls she has kept up for 20 years finally begin to lower. She does not run into his arms. She does not offer total, instantaneous forgiveness. She simply nods. A faint, genuine smile finally touches the corners of her mouth. "Watch your step up there," Clara says softly. "We don't carry workers' compensation here, and the hourly rate is strictly paid in black coffee." "I'll take it," Victor replies. He grabs his hammer, turns around, and begins to climb the wooden ladder. Clara stays on the porch, taking a slow sip of her coffee as she watches him work. The rhythmic, steady sound of the hammer echoes into the bright morning air. They are just two scarred, complicated people, choosing to stay in the wreckage together. They are not building a fairy tale romance. They are just fixing the roof, one nail at a time, building a future on the hard truth instead of an easy lie. Watching Victor climb that wooden ladder with a hammer in his hand, I couldn't help but think about the invisible debts we all carry. Not the financial ones, but the moral ones. Society often tells us that success is the ultimate eraser. We are taught that if you just climb high enough, earn enough, or build a big enough empire, the mistakes of your youth will simply disappear beneath the weight of your achievements. But life does not actually work that way, does it? I have seen people try to write massive checks to mend a broken family, or buy expensive gifts to make up for decades of absence. It almost never works. True atonement is not a financial transaction. It is an act of labor. It is the difficult, humbling willingness to strip away your titles, look at the damage you caused, and admit that your success was built on someone else's sacrifice. Victor did not buy his redemption with a $500,000 check. He started earning it the moment he picked up a tool to fix a roof he helped ruin 20 years ago. So, I want to ask you, when you look back over the long road of your own life, is there a diner you left behind? A past mistake you tried to outrun, only to realize that eventually you have to go back and fix the foundation? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We read every single one, and your lived wisdom is the heartbeat of this channel. If you value stories that confront the honest, unfiltered realities of life, please subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories. Leave a like, and I will see you in the next chapter.